Captain Marcus Flynn, in command of the research vessel Odyssey, surveyed the endless expanse of space that stretched before him. The Odyssey, a sleek ship equipped with the latest human technology, was on a mission to chart the unexplored territories at the edge of the Solarian belt. Space here was littered with anomalies and celestial debris, remnants of ancient cosmic events. On this particular day, the crew's routine systems scan picked up an irregular blip. Flynn, always cautious yet curious, ordered a closer investigation. As they approached, the blip resolved into something unexpected, an escape pod, spinning slowly in the vacuum, its exterior scorched and dented by what looked like laser fire. "Visuals up on screen," Flynn commanded. The main deck's view screen flickered, then displayed the pod in high resolution. It was unlike any design Flynn or his crew had seen before, marked with symbols that were neither human nor known alien script. "Life signs?" Flynn asked, turning to his medical officer, Dr. Ilara Miles. "Faint, but yes, there's someone alive in there," she confirmed, her eyes locked on her instruments. "One life form, alien, in critical condition." Without a second thought, Flynn made his decision. "Prepare the docking bay. We're bringing them aboard. Ilara, get your med team ready." Minutes later, the pod was secure in the Odyssey's docking bay. The crew watched through the observation window as medical personnel, led by Dr. Miles, pried open the pod's hatch. Inside, they found an alien girl, her features delicate and colorless, contrasted sharply against her vivid, azure blood seeping from her wounds. "She's a Celestian," whispered Navigator Lu Chen, who had studied alien cultures. "From Celestis, a peaceful planet known for its diplomacy. What could she be doing all the way out here?" Flynn frowned, pondering the same question. There were no records of Celestian ships ever venturing this far from their home system. The girl, barely conscious, was rushed to the medical bay. Flynn followed, his mind racing with possibilities and consequences. In the sterile white of the medical bay, Flynn watched as Ilara and her team worked to stabilize the girl. Amidst the hum of medical equipment, the alien's eyes fluttered open, meeting Flynn's gaze. Her voice was a weak whisper, but her plea was clear. "Please, help me get home. They are coming." Who was coming? Flynn's mind raced with the implications of her words. Celestis was a planet without enemies, as far as anyone knew. Who would attack a Celestian, and why? And more importantly, how had this girl, presumably fleeing from danger, ended up adrift in the vast emptiness at the edge of human-explored space? Determined to find answers and help the girl, Flynn's decision was firm. He would take her back to her home planet. Little did he know, this choice would propel him and his crew into the depths of an interstellar intrigue that would test the very limits of their courage and resolve. In the soft glow of the medical bay aboard the Odyssey, Captain Marcus Flynn stood quietly by as Dr. Ilara Miles tended to the alien girl's wounds. Her name was Lyrael, and she was now stabilized enough to speak more clearly. As Flynn watched her struggle to sit up against her pillows, he couldn't help but notice the fierce determination in her eyes, a stark contrast to her frail appearance. "Thank you for saving me," Lyrael said, her voice stronger now but still laced with fatigue. "My name is Lyrael. I'm from Celestis, and I need to get back. It's imperative." Flynn nodded, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "You're safe here, Lyrael. Tell us what happened. Why were you in that pod, and who are they that you mentioned?" Lyrael's gaze shifted towards the window, where the stars shone brightly against the backdrop of deep space. "My planet was attacked by mercenaries," she began, her hands trembling as she clutched the blanket. "I am, the daughter of a high counselor of Celestis. We are a peaceful people. We have no army, no defenses strong enough to repel such violence. They struck during a council meeting. Chaos ensued, and I was put into an escape pod by my protectors in hopes of finding help." Flynn exchanged a glance with Dr. Miles, sensing the weight of the girl's story. Why would mercenaries attack a peaceful planet? What could they possibly want? Control, resources, influence. Celestis is rich in minerals rare even by galactic standards. But we've never participated in interstellar conflicts. My escape was to seek help, to save my people, Lyrael explained, her voice breaking with emotion. Flynn's mind raced with the implications of getting involved. Earth's non-intervention policies were clear, but the thought of leaving a peaceful planet at the mercy of mercenaries didn't sit well with him. "Lyrael, it's not that simple for us to intervene. There are protocols." "Please," Lyrael interrupted, her blue eyes meeting his with an intensity that silenced him. "I've heard of humans, of your ability to fight and survive against odds. My people are dying. I am asking for your help, not just as a captain, but as a beacon as someone who can make a difference." The room fell silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines and the distant beeps of medical equipment. Flynn stood and paced a few steps, then stopped, looking back at Lyrael. Her plea echoed in his mind, a stark reminder of the harsh realities of the galaxy. "All right, Lyrael, I'll speak to my superiors. I can't promise more until I do," Flynn said finally, the decision weighing heavily on him. But even as he spoke, he knew that he couldn't just stand by. Something about Lyrael's plight stirred a sense of duty that he couldn't ignore. As Flynn left the medical bay to make the necessary communications, Dr. Miles remained by Lyrael's side, offering comfort. Outside, stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the struggles of those who traversed their vast expanses. Flynn was about to navigate more than just starfields. He was steering his crew into the murky waters of galactic politics and warfare, where the stakes were as high as the moral questions were deep. Captain Marcus Flynn stood in his quarters aboard the Odyssey, staring out into the vast expanse of space that stretched beyond the ship's viewing port. He had just finished a secure communication with Earth Command, detailing the situation with Lyrael and the plea for assistance she had brought before them. The response was as he expected, cautious and reserved. "Flynn, you are there to explore and report, not to engage in local conflicts." The stern voice of Admiral Clark had echoed over the comm link. "I advise you to maintain distance. We do not have the authority to intervene in extraterrestrial wars." Flynn rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of his responsibility as captain. Turning away from the stars, he paced his room. His mind replayed the image of Lyrael, frail yet fierce, her story a sharp cry against the silence of space. Could he really turn his back on a whole planet in need, especially when they had the capability to help? He thought about his crew, about the potential risks involved. There was no doubt that involving themselves in an interstellar conflict was dangerous. The mercenaries who attacked Celestis would not hesitate to target them if they got in the way. But then, there was the other side of the coin. The chance to save lives, to make a difference. Flynn made his way to the main deck, where his senior officers had gathered for an emergency meeting. The room fell silent as he entered. All eyes were on him, waiting for a decision. "Everyone, you know why we're here," Flynn began, his voice firm. "We have a chance to help the people of Celestis. This isn't just about following orders or sticking to our assigned paths. It's about what we stand for as human beings, as explorers in this vast universe." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of his crew members. "I won't order anyone into a battle they don't choose. This will be a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants out can stay behind at the nearest station, but I intend to help Lyrael and her people, with or without official support." There was a moment of silence, the tension palpable in the air. Then, one by one, his officers stood, signaling their agreement to stand with him. "Thank you," Flynn said, nodding with gratitude and relief. "We'll need to prepare, strategically, tactically, and with every resource at our disposal. We're not just going in to make a statement, we're going in to make a difference." The meeting continued with discussions on potential strategies and logistics. They talked about forming alliances, gathering intelligence, and planning their approach to Celestis. Flynn felt a sense of pride swell within him. Despite the odds, his crew was willing to stand up for what was right. As the meeting dispersed, Flynn stayed back, gazing once again into the void outside. This decision could mark a turning point for all of them, a deviation from their charted paths to one fraught with danger and uncertainty. Yet the resolve in his heart was clear. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together. The Odyssey approached Celestis with caution, the tension aboard palpable as they neared the planet's orbit. The crew had been briefed, the ship's weapon systems were on high alert, and Captain Marcus Flynn had every sensor scanning for potential threats. Celestis appeared serene from space, its vibrant blue oceans and swirling white clouds painting a picture of peace that belied the chaos Lyrael had described. As they entered the planetary system, Flynn's communications officer, Lieutenant Harper, intercepted a distress signal. It was a fragmented message from a Celestian convoy under attack by unknown assailants. Without hesitation, Flynn ordered the Odyssey to alter course. "Redirect power to shields and weapons. Prepare to engage on my command," Flynn directed, his voice steady but firm. The crew sprang into action, their training taking over as they maneuvered the ship into battle position. As they closed in on the coordinates of the distress signal, multiple small crafts emerged from Celestis's moon, their weapons charging. "It's an ambush!" Harper shouted over the sound of alarms. "Hold steady," Flynn commanded. "Focus on disabling their weapons. We need to buy time for the Celestians to regroup." The battle was fierce, with the Odyssey weaving through incoming fire. Flynn's tactical acumen shone as he directed his crew through evasive maneuvers and strategic counterattacks. The Odyssey's superior technology and the crew's precision ultimately gave them the upper hand. They managed to disable the lead mercenary ship, causing confusion among the enemy ranks. With the mercenaries disoriented, Flynn seized the opportunity to send a secure message to the besieged Celestian convoy, offering assistance and coordination. Grateful, the convoy's captain quickly responded, and together they formulated a quick strike plan to scatter the remaining mercenary ships. "Harper, patch me through to the convoy leader. Let's wrap this up together," Flynn said, his eyes never leaving the battlefield displayed on the screen before him. With combined forces, the Odyssey and the Celestian convoy executed a series of coordinated strikes. One by one, the mercenary ships began to retreat, their numbers dwindling under the relentless assault. The last of the enemy crafts warped out of the system, leaving behind a debris field and the echoes of battle. Breathing a sigh of relief, Flynn turned to his crew, a nod of approval for their bravery and skill. "Well done, everyone. Let's make contact with the convoy. They might need medical support, and we need to understand exactly who orchestrated this attack and why." As the Odyssey approached the Celestian ships, Flynn reflected on the unexpected battle. They had hoped for a peaceful mission, but the reality of the galaxy's conflicts had once again proven unpredictable. The engagement had shown him the depth of the mercenaries' commitment to taking Celestis, and he realized this mission might demand more from them than initially thought. Meeting with the Celestian leaders, Flynn discussed their next moves. The gratitude from the Celestians was palpable, and their need for further assistance clear. Lyrael, standing by his side, translated and facilitated the dialogue, her presence a bridge between human and Celestian efforts. "This is just the beginning," Flynn told his officers once back aboard the Odyssey. "We've shown them we're here to help, but this fight is far from over. Let's get ready for what's next." The Odyssey circled above Celestis, now a temporary command center for the joint human-Celestian operations. With the mercenaries pushed back temporarily, Captain Marcus Flynn planned the next phase of their mission, ground operations. Their objective was clear: to gather allies and solidify the resistance against the mercenary threat. Despite their initial victory in space, Flynn knew the real challenge lay on the planet's surface. In the briefing room, Flynn laid out the map of Celestis, highlighting strategic locations. "We need to secure these points," he explained, pointing to a series of settlements and resource hubs that had been under siege. "Our goal is not just to fight off the mercenaries, but to understand their operations and cut off their supply lines." The team, composed of selected Odyssey crew and Celestian volunteers, geared up for descent. Lyrael, fully recovered and determined to fight for her planet, insisted on joining. "I know the terrain and the people. I can be your guide and your interpreter," she said, her resolve mirroring Flynn's own. The dropships descended through Celestis' atmosphere, landing amidst the ruins of what was once a bustling market town. The scene was desolate, with signs of conflict evident in the scorched buildings and abandoned streets. Flynn's team moved out, their senses alert for any signs of enemy activity. As they navigated through the town, survivors began to emerge from hiding. These Celestians, weary and wary, were initially hesitant. Lyrael stepped forward, speaking softly in her native tongue, explaining their mission. Her words, filled with empathy and strength, slowly won them over. The survivors shared valuable intelligence about mercenary movements and their local collaborators. "Many here want to fight," one elder said, his eyes hard with the resolve. "But we lack the weapons and training." Flynn nodded, understanding the task ahead. "We'll help you defend your town. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. We'll do this together." Over the next few days, Flynn's team conducted guerrilla warfare training sessions, teaching basic combat and survival skills to the Celestians. Simultaneously, reconnaissance teams scouted the area, mapping out mercenary patrols and supply routes. During one such mission, Flynn and his team encountered a group of mercenaries attempting to raid a small village for supplies. The Odyssey crew, now adept in Celestian terrain tactics, ambushed the raiders, capturing several of them. From the prisoners, they learned of a larger force amassing at the nearby mining complex, the mercenaries' regional command center. "This is our next target," Flynn decided back at their temporary base. "If we take the complex, we disrupt their operations significantly." The plan was risky, involving a direct assault on a heavily fortified position. However, with their growing network of Celestian resistance fighters and the element of surprise on their side, Flynn believed it was possible. On the eve of the assault, Flynn addressed his team, both humans and Celestians together, in the dim light of the makeshift command center. "Tomorrow, we face our biggest challenge yet," he began, his voice steady and inspiring. "But remember, we're not just fighting for Celestis or for humanity. We're fighting for the right of all beings to live in peace. Let's make sure we're on the right side of history." The dawn was gray and overcast as they set out for the mining complex. Stealth was their initial approach, slipping past outer defenses using the cover of early morning mists. As they neared the main gates, however, the sky cleared, and the battle began in earnest. Laser fire crisscrossed the battlefield as Flynn's team pushed forward. Explosions rocked the ground and shouts filled the air. Despite the chaos, the team advanced with precision, their training and leadership holding them together. After hours of intense fighting, the mercenaries were overrun. The complex, a maze of tunnels and strongholds, was secured room by room until the last of the enemy surrendered. Flynn, amidst the cheers of his team and their new Celestian allies, knew this was a turning point. They had delivered a significant blow to the enemy, but the war for Celestis was far from over. With the mining complex under their control, Captain Marcus Flynn and his combined force of Odyssey crew and Celestian volunteers began to consolidate their position on Celestis. The victory at the mining complex had boosted the morale of the resistance, and news of their success spread quickly among the populace. This not only bolstered the ranks of the Celestian fighters, but also provided the much-needed logistical and tactical advantage to challenge the mercenaries more effectively. In the newly secured complex, which they converted into their main operational base, Flynn and his strategic team, including Lirael, pored over the data and resources they had captured. Among the seized assets were detailed maps, communication logs, and, crucially, the mercenary network's chain of command. This information gave Flynn a clearer picture of the enemy's infrastructure and their dependencies on off-world support. "We have an opportunity here," Flynn noted during a strategy meeting. "With this intel, we can disrupt their supply lines and communications. We cut off their support, and we weaken them significantly, opening up their other strongholds for attack." The room buzzed with the energy of planning and potential victory. Lirael, taking on more responsibility every day, coordinated the Celestian efforts, ensuring that the resistance movements were synchronized with Flynn's tactical operations. Her ability to unify the various factions under a single cause was pivotal. As preparations for the next phase of their campaign ramped up, Flynn initiated a series of strikes designed to isolate key mercenary positions. Using guerrilla tactics learned and honed on the ground, these strikes were highly effective, causing confusion and fear among the mercenary ranks. Each successful operation brought more Celestians to their cause, swelling their forces with newly trained fighters eager to reclaim their planet. Meanwhile, Flynn established communication with other human outposts and ships in the sector, seeking additional support and supplies. His reputation as a decisive and compassionate leader grew, and soon, the Odyssey was not only a symbol of hope for Celestis, but also a rallying point for human forces in the region who were moved by their plight. "Captain, we have multiple units ready to mobilize for the next major push," reported Commander Zhao, his second-in-command. "We've got human and Celestian squadrons coordinated and waiting for your go." Flynn looked over the assembled maps and troop placements, his mind racing through scenarios. "It's time to take this fight to their doorstep. We're going to liberate the capital. It's heavily fortified, but with our new reinforcements and the element of surprise, we've got a fighting chance." The plan was set into motion. Diverse units, each with specific roles and targets, began covertly moving towards the capital. The operation was complex, involving simultaneous strikes on power stations, communication hubs, and key defensive positions around the city. The coordination required was immense, and the risk of failure high, but the stakes were too great to consider holding back. On the eve of the operation, Flynn held a final briefing with his commanders. "This is more than just a military operation," he told them, looking each in the eye. "We're fighting for a future where peace is the norm, not the exception. Tomorrow, we stand together, humans and Celestians, to make that future possible." The morning of the attack dawned clear and bright. As the sun rose over Celestis, it illuminated a planet on the brink of significant change. Flynn, aboard the Odyssey, but in constant communication with his ground forces, watched as the first reports of success came in. The element of surprise had worked in their favor, and the capital's outer defenses were quickly being overwhelmed, By midday, the heart of the city was in sight, and the sound of celebration mixed with the noise of battle. Flynn felt a surge of pride and hope. Today, Celestis would be free, and the galaxy would see what could be achieved when humanity reached out, not in conquest, but in aid. The strategic liberation of Celestis' capital marked a significant turning point in the campaign, but Captain Marcus Flynn knew that the real culmination of their efforts would be the battle at the Three Moons, the mercenaries' last stronghold and their most fortified outpost. Located on the largest of Celestis' three moons, this complex was the nerve center of all mercenary operations and their final line of defense. The moons, orbiting in close synchrony, cast long shadows over each other, creating areas of darkness that the Odyssey crew utilized to their advantage. The plan was meticulously crafted, involving a multi-pronged assault from space and surface simultaneously. Flynn divided his forces into three main contingents, each tasked with taking one of the strategic locations on the moons. In the lead-up to the battle, Flynn and Lyrael worked tirelessly with their teams, reviewing every possible scenario and refining their tactics. These moons control the orbital defenses for the entire system. Taking them out will not only ensure Celestis' security, but also send a clear message across the sector, Flynn briefed his team. The night before the operation, Flynn couldn't sleep. He walked through the ship, checking on his crew, ensuring everyone was prepared. The gravity of what they were about to undertake weighed heavily on him, knowing that not all who ventured into the battle would return. As dawn broke over the first moon, dubbed Theta by the mercenaries, Flynn's forces launched their attack. Stealth shuttles, cloaked and silent, delivered teams to critical infrastructure points, while a fierce space battle erupted as the Odyssey and allied ships engaged the mercenary fleet. Theta fell first, with minimal casualties, thanks to the element of surprise and the precise execution of Flynn's special forces. The victory was a morale booster, and Flynn quickly relayed the success to the other two teams. On the second moon, Gamma, the battle was tougher. The mercenaries were better prepared, and the terrain was tricky, filled with craters and steep ravines. The fighting was intense, with both sides suffering heavy losses. However, the relentless push by the Celestian human forces, driven by the dream of liberation, gradually tipped the scales in their favor. The final moon, Sigma, proved the most challenging. Its defenses were the most sophisticated, with extensive minefields and automated defense systems. Flynn personally oversaw this part of the operation from the Odyssey, coordinating airstrikes and ground movements. The battle for Sigma lasted hours, stretching into a prolonged engagement that tested the limits of both the attackers and defenders. As the last defenses on Sigma crumbled, Flynn felt a mix of triumph and sorrow. The moons were free, but at a cost. Many lives had been lost in the day's fighting. He took a moment to honor those who had fallen, promising to remember their sacrifices always. With the three moons secured, the mercenaries' hold over Celestis was effectively broken. Communications intercepted from the mercenary fleet indicated confusion and disarray, their commanders scrambling for a retreat. The victory at the Three Moons was celebrated across the galaxy. News of the successful liberation, led by a coalition of human and Celestian forces, spread far and wide, drawing attention to the bravery and strategic acumen of Captain Flynn and his diverse team. Back on Celestis, as Flynn walked through the liberated streets, the gratitude of the Celestians was palpable. They hailed him and his crew as heroes, but Flynn knew the true heroes were the men and women who fought by his side, the ones who believed in the cause of freedom and peace enough to risk everything. The Battle of the Three Moons would go down in history not just as a military victory, but as a testament to what could be achieved when disparate peoples united against tyranny. After the decisive Battle of the Three Moons, Celestis began the arduous process of rebuilding. The mercenaries had been defeated, their stranglehold on the planet broken thanks to the concerted efforts of the Odyssey crew and the newly formed Celestian resistance. Captain Marcus Flynn, having become something of a legendary figure on Celestis, now faced a different challenge, helping to establish a lasting peace. The capital city, once marred by the scars of battle, buzzed with activity. Builders and architects from various parts of the galaxy, drawn by the victory's news and the promise of a new beginning, came to lend their skills. Flynn, though a soldier by training, found himself in meetings with diplomats and planetary leaders, discussing governance and the protection of Celestis against future threats. Lyrael, now recognized as a key figure in her planet's resistance, took on a leadership role in the new government. Her first-hand experience with human bravery and strategic thinking influenced her advocacy for a strong alliance with Earth and other friendly planets. Together, she and Flynn worked on establishing a defense pact that would ensure Celestis remained free and sovereign. In a grand ceremony held in the rebuilt Central Square, Flynn and his officers were honored by the Celestian Council. The Celestians, known for their rich traditions and deep cultural heritage, bestowed upon the crew ornate medals crafted from the rare minerals native to their world. The medals served not just as tokens of gratitude, but as symbols of the deep bond formed between humans and Celestians. During his speech, Flynn reflected on the journey. "This was more than a mission," he said, addressing the gathered crowd, which included humans and Celestians alike. "It was a testament to our shared values, our resilience, and our unwavering commitment to support one another in times of need. Let this victory be the foundation of a lasting peace and a brighter future for Celestis and all who come here seeking solace." As the celebrations continued, Flynn walked through the city, observing the joyful faces of families reuniting, children playing in the streets, and community leaders planning their future. It was a stark contrast to the fear and destruction that had once gripped the planet. He knew that while the physical scars of the war might heal, the memories would linger. Ensuring those memories did not sow the seeds of future conflict was now his focus. Lyrael joined him, her presence a comforting reminder of how much had been accomplished. "You know, Marcus, I never thought I'd see the day when our streets were filled with laughter again," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Flynn smiled, placing a friendly hand on her shoulder. "It's the people of Celestis who won their freedom, Lyrael. We were merely facilitators. Your courage inspired us all." As the sun set on Celestis, casting a golden glow over the city, Flynn felt a deep sense of satisfaction and hope. The Odyssey was scheduled to leave soon, returning to Earth to report and resupply, but Flynn knew part of his heart would always remain with Celestis. Back aboard the Odyssey, as they prepared for departure, Flynn looked out at the thriving planet one last time. "Chart a course for home, but let's keep our communications channel open with Celestis," he instructed his navigation officer. "Understood, Captain. Homeward bound," came the reply. As the Odyssey slipped away into the starlit vastness of space, Flynn realized that their adventure had not only changed Celestis, but had transformed each of them, forging warriors into peacemakers. This mission, born out of a desperate plea for help, had blossomed into a beacon of new beginnings, a testament to humanity's role as both defender and diplomat in the cosmic arena.